If left unchecked, Bismarck threatened to dominate the Atlantic and starve Britain of the vital food and military supplies that flowed from the rest of the world. The Admiralty had no choice. Bismarck had to be stopped.
The ocean around the Bismarck was calm when the submersible team first detected the anomaly. The battleship had rested quietly for decades, yet something about its signature had changed. A new electromagnetic spike pulsed from deep within the wreck, subtle enough to evade casual mapping, but strong enough to trigger curiosity among those studying the site. The team at the research vessel believed at first it was equipment interference. The Bismarck had always been a graveyard of twisted metal and historical tragedy, but nothing about it had ever suggested modern activity. Still, instruments didn't lie. Whatever was generating the signal wasn't part of the known layout of the ship. A new autonomous submarine drone, the Asterion III, was launched to investigate. It was a sleek machine built specifically for deep ocean reconnaissance, capable of withstanding enormous pressure and equipped with AI-assisted mapping tools. Its mission parameters were simple: identify the source of the anomaly. As it descended, the research vessel watched its feed with intense focus. The drone's lights pierced the dark like two tiny stars, illuminating rusted steel plates, collapsed corridors, and the silent outline of a historical giant. The Bismarck stood as both a monument and a warning. The drone swept its scanners across the ship's hull, tracing familiar contours until something unfamiliar appeared. A section of plating seemed smoother than expected, almost untouched by time. It wasn't listed on any blueprint or reconstruction. To the drone, it resembled a sealed chamber. Scientists on the vessel exchanged confused glances. The Bismarck's internal design had been studied obsessively for decades, and no hidden compartment of this position or size had ever been documented. The smooth paneling looked alien amid the rough and rust-scoured warship exterior. The drone recorded the first rhythmic pulse emanating from the structure. It was not mechanical. It was too precise, too coordinated, a heartbeat of energy rather than machinery. It seemed to respond to the drone's proximity. The research team expanded the data to multiple screens. Spectral analysis suggested the material of the chamber had an unusual composition, not standard German naval steel. Elements showed traces of alloys not used until decades after the war, yet here they were, inside a wreck that sank in 1941. No explanation made sense. Either the chamber had been inserted long after the Bismarck fell to the depths, which was impossible, or the structure was older, repurposed, or entirely foreign to known wartime engineering. Pressure readings from the chamber shocked the engineers. Inside the hidden structure, pressure was stabilized to near-surface conditions. That meant active energy regulation, something that absolutely should not exist inside an 84-year-old wreck. The drone extended its manipulators to inspect the chamber more closely. As it touched the surface, the metal vibrated subtly, as though responding to the contact. A faint glow shimmered beneath layers of marine growth. The pulse emitted again, this time stronger, causing static to flood the drone's cameras momentarily. The research vessel debated aborting the mission, but the anomaly was too significant to walk away from. A microfracture appeared along the edge of the chamber. It widened in real time, reacting to the drone's touch, almost as if it recognized the presence of a probe and granted access. The Asterion III was ordered to continue. Its lights swept through the widening gap, revealing an interior lined with metallic etchings. None matched German inscriptions. They were circular, geometric, precise. Too clean for anything exposed to decades underwater. Inside the chamber, suspended above a cradle-like frame, lay an object the drone could barely interpret. It was smooth, ovoid, metallic, and faintly luminescent. Its glow pulsed with the same rhythm detected earlier. The drone scanned for explosives or hazards. None registered. Instead, the object emitted low-frequency electromagnetic waves. They weren't threatening, but they were structured, patterned, as though encoded with information. When the drone drifted closer, the pulses accelerated. Its systems experienced momentary command latency. The pilot tried to compensate, but some external force, briefly seized control of its navigation thrusters. The drone regained control seconds later, but its telemetry logs showed unmistakable interference. The pulses weren't random. They were interacting with the drone's circuitry intentionally. The object's glow intensified. A second layer of its surface began shifting, revealing tessellated segments beneath. It was waking up. Mission control froze. Something inside the chamber, inside the Bismarck, was becoming active for the first time in possibly decades, or longer. The drone zoomed its cameras. The object's segments rearranged themselves like petals opening, revealing a crystalline core. Light refracted through it in precise patterns, like an optical language. The drone transmitted the images back to the surface, but the feed began to degrade, as though the chamber itself resisted the transmission. Still, enough clarity remained to see that the core was functioning like an energy heart. The pulses changed pitch. Audio sensors picked up a faint harmonic resonance. It wasn't random noise. It resembled a constructed frequency designed for communication. Then something unexpected happened. The drone's control system stabilized completely. No interference, no latency. The object seemed to be helping balance the signal. The drone slowly descended below the object, scanning the cradle supporting it. Beneath the frame, a second compartment slid open, triggered by the drone's presence. Inside the hidden compartment were remnants of a different metal, one predating industrial metallurgy. Isotope analysis suggested an origin centuries old, utterly incompatible with the Bismarck's era. The researchers were speechless. The chamber was not a wartime secret. It was an insertion of something older, something that should never have been aboard a 20th century battleship. Audio sensors detected a second frequency. This one was stronger and directional. It targeted the drone directly. The drone captured one last clear image before interference corrupted its feed. The object projecting beams across the chamber, mapping the drone's outline like a scanner examining its visitor. Suddenly, the chamber vibrated violently. Sediment around the wreck shifted. The drone instinctively backed away, its fail-safe systems activating. The object's glow flared to a blinding intensity. A surge of electromagnetic energy blasted outward, forcing the drone to retreat through the microfracture. The chamber began sealing itself. The edges of the fracture fused, metal flowing together like liquid and hardening instantly. The energy pulse reverberated outward into the ocean floor. Sensors recorded a subtle displacement wave rippling across the sediment. Even from outside, the pulses inside the chamber continued, steady and deliberate. The object was fully awake now. Mission Control faced a dilemma: approach again or leave the chamber undisturbed. The implications of tampering with an unknown active artifact buried in a historic shipwreck were staggering. The drone maintained a cautious distance. Even from meters away, its instruments recorded residual energy that defied explanation. The chamber, now sealed once more, emitted a final pulse that synchronized briefly with the drone's sensors. It almost felt like a message, a pattern repeated 3 times before fading. The researchers began assembling a recovery proposal. If the object truly was ancient and embedded in the Bismarck for unknown reasons, it could represent one of the greatest archaeological or technological discoveries in history. Engineers warned the team that extracting the chamber could destabilize large portions of the wreck. The Bismarck was fragile after decades on the seabed, and any disturbance risked collapse. Still, the object inside remained active, and the longer it pulsed, the more concerned the scientists became. Energy readings showed gradual escalation. The debate about whether to retrieve or monitor extended late into the night aboard the vessel. Each pulse from the chamber echoed like a reminder that the object was not dormant. Some speculated that it had been dormant for centuries, until deep-sea pressure, corrosion, or even the drone's presence triggered its awakening. Others argued the object was designed to activate only when discovered, suggesting intelligence behind its creation. Theories spiraled: lost technology, ancient artifact, unknown civilization, or a piece of an engineered device preserved intentionally within one of history's most infamous battleships. The researchers replayed the drone footage repeatedly. analyzing every flicker of light, every geometric etching, every audio pulse. Patterns emerged, but none matched known languages or codes. The drone continued orbiting the sealed chamber, collecting passive data. Strange fluctuations in the surrounding water temperature were recorded, though no heat source should exist there. A faint luminescence began spreading along the chamber's outer surface. The metal glowed just enough to be visible on the drone's cameras. Mission Control recorded the phenomenon with growing unease. The glow corresponded with the object's internal pulses. The drone inched closer again, recording micro-vibrations in the chamber walls. These vibrations matched the harmonic frequencies from the earlier activation event. It was becoming clear that the chamber was not merely a container, it was a system, a designed environment protecting the object, regulating its activity, and now engaging with its surroundings. Scientists compared the timeline. The chamber had remained inert for decades until this week. Something had changed. The drone detected faint traces of microscopic particulate matter drifting from the sealed join. They were metallic but highly refined, almost nanostructured. This discovery suggested the chamber was not sealed in a traditional sense. It was self-repairing, self-regulating, and alive with function. Mission Control debated sending in a second drone equipped with hardened circuits, but the risk of losing another unit was significant. The Asterion 3 sent another scan toward the chamber. The object reacted instantly. A pulse emanated outward, not aggressive, but unmistakably responsive. The pulse shut off the drone's lights for 2 seconds. When they restarted, the glow from the chamber was brighter. The drone's sensors picked up something new, a faint symbol appearing on the outer surface, not etched, but projected, a single geometric shape. The projection shifted through several configurations, as though trying to communicate. The research vessel recorded everything, but no one could interpret it. The pulses subsided into a slow, rhythmic pattern, like breathing. The chamber seemed to settle, content to continue its activation in silence. As hours passed, the drone maintained a respectful distance. The chamber did not attempt further interaction, but remained undeniably alive. By dawn, the researchers acknowledged the truth. Something inside the Bismarck was awake, responding, and possibly waiting. The recovery mission remained under consideration. The world would soon learn of the anomaly, but for now, the information stayed tightly controlled. The drone hovered one last time near the sealed chamber. The glow subsided just enough to reveal one final projection. A single pulse, a single symbol, then stillness. The chamber remained sealed, but whatever was inside it, whatever had slept for decades or centuries beneath the ocean, was no longer dormant. The Asterion 3 ascended slowly, transmitting its final scans. The research vessel backed away from the wreck, uncertain whether they had discovered history or awakened it. Even as they departed, the energy readings persisted. The chamber remained active, pulsing at intervals too deliberate to be natural. The ocean swallowed the drone's lights as it ascended, leaving the Bismarck once more in darkness. But now, beneath its shattered hull, something glowed in answer. The research team could not shake the feeling that the discovery was only the beginning. They had found a secret sealed within a warship, a secret that had survived oceans, pressure, and time itself. And somewhere in the deep, the pulse continued, waiting for what came next. The research vessel drifted slowly over the site as the first hints of dawn stretched across the horizon. The crew remained silent, eyes glued to the drone feed, watching for any sign of the chamber reacting to the rising light. The energy pulse, faint but unmistakable, continued. It was almost rhythmic now, like the measured breathing of an organism deep beneath the ocean. No mechanical system could mimic such perfection. One of the engineers suggested the pulse might be communicating. The thought hung in the room like a tangible presence. Could the object inside actually be sending signals? And if so, to whom? The drone hovered in place, sensors scanning for any anomaly in the water itself. Tiny currents shifted oddly near the chamber, as if the surrounding water acknowledged the object's presence. A sudden flicker on the drone feed caught the team's attention. The chamber's outer surface shimmered, reflecting the drone's lights in unexpected patterns. These were not random. They repeated in distinct sequences. Mission Control began recording every fluctuation. Spectrograms revealed harmonic frequencies previously undetected, overlaying the electromagnetic pulse. The object seemed capable of producing complex, multi-dimensional signals. A second pulse erupted from the chamber, stronger and longer than before. It reverberated through the ocean, subtly shifting sediment on the seabed. The drone's stabilizers quivered under the feedback. The researchers debated whether to approach closer. The chamber had sealed itself completely during the previous interaction, but the object was clearly responsive to external stimuli. They needed more data, but at what risk? Another microfracture appeared along the base of the chamber, almost imperceptible. The drone's manipulator arm extended, touching the surface lightly. Immediately, the object responded, sending a wave of energy outward. This time, the pulse did not interfere with the drone. Instead, it synchronized, creating a resonance that stabilized the craft. The effect was subtle, but undeniable. Something inside was actively choosing to interact. High-resolution cameras captured shifting etchings across the chamber walls. The symbols moved like living script, reconfiguring themselves with each pulse. The researchers stared in awe, unable to decipher the patterns. The drone attempted to scan deeper into the chamber. Sensors detected multiple layers beyond the visible object. The core seemed to be protected by nested systems, each more complex than the last. For the first time, the object emitted a low, vibrating hum. It was audible faintly through the drone's hydrophones, a sound that resonated deep in the chest of anyone listening. The vibration interacted with the ocean water itself, creating standing waves. Tiny metallic particles suspended in the current began to align along the nodes, forming transient patterns that mirrored the object's internal symbols. The research team considered the implications. This was not just an artifact. It was an active system interacting with its environment in ways that defied known science. Mission Control debated deploying a second drone, larger, and equipped with heavy-duty sensors. The risk was high, but the potential reward, an unprecedented discovery, was greater. As the drone hovered, the object suddenly projected a faint holographic outline into the chamber. It was geometric, three-dimensional, and precise. Nothing on Earth resembled it. The holographic projection shifted subtly, as if observing the drone, adapting its form in response to each movement. The team realized that the object was not passive. It was aware. Electrical interference surged through the drone systems for a brief moment, then vanished. The pattern suggested intentionality, not malfunction. A secondary object appeared inside the chamber, nested beneath the primary. Its surface shimmered, reflecting the pulses of the larger artifact. The two seemed to communicate in real time, a hidden network of activity. The drone's lights reflected off the nested object, revealing facets that seemed crystalline, almost alive. It was as if the structure itself had been grown rather than manufactured. Mission Control scrambled to record all data. The nested object produced electromagnetic pulses at a frequency beyond human hearing, interacting with the primary object to create complex energy interference patterns. The ocean floor shifted slightly under the energy field. Sediment displaced, revealing traces of earlier deposits. These deposits contained metallic particles unlike any known element, stable under extreme pressure and resistant to corrosion. The drone hovered, its manipulator arm extended. The object reacted, tilting slightly toward the probe. The resonance between the two systems became more pronounced. One of the scientists suggested that the chamber itself might be a containment system, designed to keep the object stable over centuries, shielding it from the corrosive deep-sea environment. The drone's cameras caught something extraordinary. The primary object's core flickered, and for a brief instant, a series of symbols projected into the water, forming a three-dimensional lattice. The projection remained visible for mere seconds, but it hinted at complex architecture, information encoded in the form of light and energy rather than matter. The team debated whether to attempt interaction or continue passive observation. Any physical interference could destabilize the entire system. The pulse rate of the object began to increase. It was subtle at first, then became more pronounced, almost urgent. The chamber itself seemed to respond, shimmering as though acknowledging the acceleration. The drone's sensors detected a heat gradient emerging from the object. Not excessive, but consistent, suggesting metabolic-like activity within a mechanical or crystalline structure. The nested object began to move independently, aligning with the core. Its motion was slow but deliberate, precise to the millimeter. Mission Control observed the synchronization. The primary and secondary objects were now interacting as a unified system, energy fields intertwined, creating patterns in the surrounding water. The drone attempted to photograph the interior at full resolution. The light reflected off facets of the objects, revealing complex internal geometries that defied Euclidean interpretation. Spectral analysis indicated a series of previously unknown elements embedded within both objects. Isotopic ratios suggested origins inconsistent with any known human manufacturing. The chamber's walls began to pulse in harmony with the objects. Energy readings suggested that the container was more than a passive structure. It was integrated with the system inside. For the first time, the team considered that the object might not be of terrestrial origin. The composition, the energy behavior, the responsiveness, all indicated a design far beyond 20th century technology. A sudden surge of electromagnetic energy struck the drone. Its systems briefly shut down, leaving only inertial stabilization active. The team held their breath as seconds passed without communication. Then, as suddenly as it had failed, the drone regained full control. The objects inside seemed to be monitoring, adjusting, but not hostile. The holographic projections returned, now more elaborate. Symbols appeared to move outward from the objects, forming lattice-like structures in the surrounding water. The drone moved closer, careful not to touch the objects. The primary artifact responded with a slight rotation, almost acknowledging the approach. The nested object emitted a faint pulse toward the drone, transmitting signals directly to its onboard processors. Data streams flooded in, almost intelligible, but far too advanced to decode in real time. The research team began working frantically, attempting to interpret the incoming data. Patterns suggested energy flow instructions, not language as humans understood it. A second microfracture appeared along the chamber wall, this time near the base of the primary object. It widened slightly, allowing the drone a glimpse of another internal layer. Inside, there were structures resembling miniature machinery or biological analogs, embedded within crystalline matrices. Each element emitted tiny pulses in synchrony with the larger objects. Mission Control speculated on the purpose. Was this storage, a computation network, or a self-sustaining system designed for observation? The primary object's pulse rate quickened further, responding to the drone's sensors. The rhythm was now almost musical, a structured composition of energy and frequency. The nested object's crystal facets refracted light, projecting faint rainbow-like arcs into the chamber. The effect was mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. The chamber walls, once dull and rusted, now reflected light patterns that created geometric illusions. The team began to wonder if the chamber itself was a display or interface for the objects. The drone drifted closer to the base of the primary object. Small manipulator tools extended, probing the environment without contact. The objects adjusted, responding with subtle shifts in energy fields. One of the researchers suggested they might be witnessing an entirely new form of intelligence, neither biological nor purely mechanical, but something in between. The object's energy fields began interacting with the drone's instruments, temporarily enhancing their resolution and sensitivity. The drone itself became a conduit for observation. A pulse of energy traveled from the nested object to the primary, then outward toward the chamber. Sensors detected vibrations that seemed to encode complex data. Mission Control attempted to decode, but the sequence was too advanced. Even advanced AI struggled to identify patterns beyond structural repetition and harmonic resonance. The drone's cameras recorded micro-movements within the primary object. Tiny crystalline structures expanded and contracted in perfect rhythm, like a living organism breathing. The ocean around the Bismarck shifted subtly. Currents moved in response to the energy emanating from the chamber, creating micro-vortices that had no natural explanation. The objects now seemed fully synchronized, their pulses forming a unified rhythm that permeated the chamber. The resonance stabilized the surrounding water and sediment. Mission Control debated whether the object might be aware of its observers, interacting selectively rather than indiscriminately. The drone hovered quietly, lights dimmed to minimal output. The chamber responded, projecting faint, concentric rings outward from the primary object. These rings appeared to encode spatial information, mapping the drone and its surroundings with incredible precision. The nested object pulsed again, sending a signal toward the drone's control system. The craft responded intuitively, aligning itself to the object's projected grid. For the first time, the team felt a connection between the human-made machine and the alien or unknown system. It was as if the objects recognized intent. A faint vibration passed through the research vessel itself. The energy field extended beyond the chamber, subtly interacting with metal and water far above the wreck. The drone hovered at a distance, capturing the full structure in a final, comprehensive sweep. The holographic projections formed a lattice larger than the chamber itself. Mission Control recorded every byte. The pattern suggested storage of data far beyond Earth's current capabilities. The pulse began to slow, settling into a regular rhythm, as if concluding an activity or returning to a resting state. The nested object shifted once more, aligning perfectly with the primary. Together, they emitted a final burst of energy that stabilized the chamber and surrounding wreckage. The drone slowly backed away, ascending toward the research vessel. The object's glow dimmed, returning the chamber to a seemingly inert state. The team knew the encounter was only the beginning. Analysis would take months, perhaps years, to decipher the data encoded in energy, light, and crystalline structures. The ocean swallowed the drone's lights as it surfaced. But deep below, the Bismarck's secret chamber remained, alive with unknown intelligence. The pulse continued, faint but persistent, like a heartbeat waiting for the next discovery, the next visitor, the next interaction. The researchers watched in awe, realizing they had uncovered not only history, but a legacy older than human memory, one that might redefine the boundaries of knowledge itself. And somewhere beneath the wreck, the objects rested, aware, waiting, and silently observing the world above. The discovery of the Bismarck's hidden chamber had become a threshold into the unknown, a door that had been opened, but not yet fully entered. The pulse persisted, and the ocean waited, patient as the secrets it held continued to awaken.